Chapter 10 through 11 looks at early adulthood, physical, cognitive, and social development. Let's start with emerging adulthood. Emerging adulthood is this period between being a teenager and being an adult that is financially independent, making their own decisions. Now, we have this new developmental stage because our economy has changed. We went from being more factory, more industrial type society to being more of a service industry. That requires more of a college education. So people aren't able to become independent adults like they could when we had those unionized factory jobs where you could just get out of high school and get a decent paying job. So we need a college education more so than in the past, and that pushes back adulthood for many into their mid to late 20s. Physical development in early adulthood. So our physical and sensory abilities are typically at their peak during this time. There are many different factors on how healthy we are, how physically fit we are, genetic, behavioral, indirect influences. Read through that because you will have a question on your worksheet about all the different factors that influence how healthy we are. Different sexual and reproductive issues in young adulthood is STDs, so sexually transmitted diseases, infertility, and PMS. So make sure to read through all that as well. You will have a question on your worksheet relating to that. Let's go down to cognitive development. Lots of different perspectives on adult cognitive development. So Sternberg offers a perspective on intelligence. It goes beyond normal intelligence or the traditional intelligence theories that really test for analytical intelligence, book smarts. So Sternberg said that there's more to intelligence than just book smarts. So analytical is that book smart. There's also a practical intelligence or street smarts. And there's a type of intelligence, creative intelligence, or like art smarts. So creative intelligence becomes very important in our careers. We need to think creatively. Those that think creatively tend to do better. Street smarts or practical intelligence is particularly important in adulthood as well. What's interesting though is that traditional schooling focuses a lot on analytical skills. A lot of traditional intelligence tests focus on analytical skills, when in adulthood we need more and more of this creative and practical intelligence. So let's move on to Piaget. Remember, smart people cook fish for Piaget. The last stage we talked about was formal operations, and that's in adolescence where we start to think more abstractly and hypothetically. Some investigators propose distinctly adult forms of cognition beyond formal operation, where we have this reflective judgment that emphasizes complex logic, where we have post-formal thought that involves intuition and emotion. So as adults, we use a lot of reflective judgment. We are constantly questioning things that we thought maybe in the past were fact. So reevaluating stuff in light of new evidence. And we bring in emotion, intuition sometimes to be at peace with, to understand things that are kind of ambiguous, that really don't have a concrete answer to. So maybe when you're trying to figure out why do good people die from tsunamis, there is no answer to that. Sometimes we have to bring in spirituality or emotions or intuition, something else beyond logic to explain why that happened. So post-formal thought refers to bringing in your emotions, intuition, also understanding that the truth may vary from one situation to the next. So there can be many different solutions based on different circumstances. So subjectivity plays a role in thinking, and we just understand that solutions are more complex than one simple answer. Things aren't always just, say, black and white. Shea offers another cognitive developmental theory that says that we use and acquire information for different reasons throughout life. So make sure to read through that to understand. As a child, we acquire information for information's sake. As we go on, we acquire information to get a better job. And then in late adulthood, we acquire and use information to leave a legacy behind. So that's Shay's cognitive developmental theory. Now, emotional intelligence is something that we do not tend to evaluate very often formally, but it's something that's so important to life success. All right, let's look at moral reasoning. Whenever I say moral reasoning, you should think of Kohlberg. Kohlberg offered that model of pre-conventional, conventional, post-conventional. Conventional is childhood, and that is when we make decisions based on trying to avoid negative consequences. Conventional is adolescence. We're going along with the conventions of society. We're just doing what everybody else is doing. We're not rocking the boat. We want people to like us. We're just going along with the conventions of society. That's very much what adolescents do. Post-conventional is what we do as an adult. We tend to make our moral decisions based on what we in our heart feel is the right thing to do. We make decisions based on what we feel is just. Now, Gilligan offers a different moral reasoning perspective that places more emphasis on relationships and feminine compassion. So Gilligan says that we make our decisions based on how it is going to affect others. We do things based on the well-being, say, of our children or our partner. So we transition in childhood from being very selfish, I love me, to I love you when you get a partner. And then when you have kids, I love you more than me. So you make a lot of your decisions on what is right in your life based on what is right for the kids or for your partner. And then in later adulthood, when your kids are out of the house, and maybe when you're retired, maybe you find a little bit of a balance between I love me and I love you. You find a balance in between being selfless, giving and giving and giving, and also taking care of yourself. So both Kohlberg and Gilligan put responsibility for others, taking care of others, thinking about others as the highest level of morality. A lot of cognitive growth is happening in college. So you might start off college being concrete operational, or maybe just starting with the formal operational, thinking very hypothetically and abstract. Now, as you move through college and you get exposed to a lot of different theories and a lot of different knowledge and a lot of different views, your thinking progresses from being very rigid, there is one correct answer or one right opinion, to being way more flexible, and then understanding that there maybe isn't one right answer, or that many opinions are okay, that people can think differently, that things are very relative, that there may not be just this one answer. So the more educated I get, the more I realize how little I know, the more I realize how a lot of things don't have an answer to it, but there are a lot of possibilities. So a lot of cognitive growth in college as we get exposed. We go from very rigid thinking to more flexible thinking, to making decisions that allow for uncertainty, that allow for others' opinions to be okay as well, even if they're different than our own. So completing college depends on a number of factors. A lot of times the tests to get into college are very much focused on analytical skills and not looking at maybe motivation or ability to work or dedication or support or fit between the school and students. And those are the factors that really very much correlate with students completing college. So let's move on to social development. So we have this emerging adulthood, talked about that this time in between being a teen and taking on adult roles. It's this time of experimentation. It's figuring out maybe what you want to do as an adult. You are also developing long-term romantic relationships during this time, according to Erickson. So Erickson, we are moving on from adolescence of finding our identity to starting to focus on other people, on intimacy, finding a romantic partner while still making sure not to give up our own personalities. So finding relationships, intimacy, so that we no longer feel isolated. Now, Levinson said that we go through a lot of different eras and transitions through life. Levinson offered an adult developmental stage theory of personality development. And what stage we're in really centers around what we find important at that time. So the early adult transition is about seeking independence, separating from family. That's what our personality is really about, and that's what we're moving towards. That's our goals in life at that time. Then in our 20s, early 20s, we're experimenting with different careers, different lifestyles, and then we start settling down in the later years. So Levinson offers this eras and transitions personality development theory, so make sure to read through that. Timing of events model of personality development says that we have this social clock, this set of normal times that we're supposed to, or normal ages for when we're supposed to go through important events, and how we develop our personality, our well-being is influenced by if we go through things at the right time, the normal time. So it's influenced by the occurrence and timing of normative life events. If you experience the death of your parent as a child, that is very much going to affect how you develop later on. So that's that timing of events model. So when things happen, if they happen out of the norm, that's going to have an impact on your life. The traits model, Costa and McCrae, and the way that you can remember that, the different aspects is ocean, O-C-E-A-N, different ways to describe personality. So you're going to take the Big Five test to figure out how open you are to new experiences, how conscientious you are, how agreeable. So the Costa and McCrae's 5-factor model of personality describes our personality. And these traits will change a lot during young adulthood. They will slow down in changes after age 30. So the typological model of personality development looks at how well we are able to control ourselves as well as deal with stress. There's ego-resilient people, over-controlled and under-controlled. Under-controlled people tend to do better later on in life when they find a healthy outlet for their energy and spontaneity. All right. Let's look at love. So Sternberg has that intelligence theory as well as a triangular theory of love, these patterns of love. So relationships have differing levels of intimacy, passion, and commitment. Intimacy is that friendship, the emotional element. Passion is the physical arousal element. And commitment is more of that cognitive element that I'm dedicated to being in this relationship. If you have all three, you have consummate love. I'll make sure to put in a video that describes this a little bit more. Looking at single life, you're seeing more and more people, over a third of young adults are not yet married. Again, we're pushing back marriage. We're getting married later on, a lot of that due to different economic reasons. Gay and lesbian relationships. What research shows is that same-sex relationships tend to do better at negotiating household, that should say chores. They have more equal divvying up of household responsibilities. They resolve conflict more positively, but they tend to be less stable, and some of that having to do with less institutional support or less support from relationships, maybe discrimination. Cohabitation. Cohabitators have a higher divorce rate. A lot of this having to do with if you decide not to cohabitate, that might be because of religious reasons. You don't believe in it, so therefore you don't believe in divorce. It goes against your moral values. So parenthood and marital satisfaction, it tends to dip during the childbearing years. There's a lot of stress when you're raising your children. That's normal for satisfaction in marriage to go down during those years. It'll go back up. Dual earning families, there are benefits to it. There are also stresses to it, so there are pros and cons. And the last part of this is looking at divorce and remarriage and having affairs, extramarital sex. A lot of estimates are around about 20%, 1 in 5. So go ahead and make sure you read through all this and watch all the extra videos so you fully understand.